Surplus and deficit. So we've been talking about budgeting, but just because we can create a budget doesn't mean we can actually stick to it. A budget is usually designed so that expenses match income, but at the end of the month, you might have a surplus or a deficit. Surpluses are usually good things. This is when your income is higher than expenses. So you have more income than you had expenses. The opposite is a deficit. A deficit is when your expenses are higher than your income. So if you finish a month with a surplus, that's a great thing. You can send that extra money into savings. You can also spend it other places, but the best idea is to put it into your savings. A deficit, though, is bad. That means you're going to have to find that extra money somewhere, probably your savings, and hopefully not debt. Let's look at an example budget. Renee is a high school student. She made a budget, and then she did the really important thing after creating a budget, which is keeping a record of her actual income and expenses after the month has, or throughout the month. So did she have a surplus or deficit in that month? So we can see that this budget has two really important parts. First of all, it has the budget, which is how much she planned to make that month, and then the expenses below, how much she expected to make that month. And also, she kept track of what she actually ended up making that month and how much she actually ended up spending that month. This way we can figure out if your budget's actually working for you and can keep track of surpluses and deficits. So if we total up how much she budgeted to make, we'll see that she budgeted to make $188 that month. How much did she actually make? Well, 48 plus 140, she actually made $188. But notice that it happened differently than she expected to make it. She made a little more from her part-time job than she expected. Maybe she added a couple hours to her shift or whatever. And she also did not get what she expected to get. Maybe she expected to get repaid $20 that she had lent to a friend, and she didn't get that amount. So the budget ended up being different than what she actually got, but she got lucky, and those two things ended up being the same. Now if we go down and add up the expenses, she had originally planned to spend $188, so her budget matched her budgeted income matched her budgeted expenses, which is how you should make your budget. And notice that that includes in here a bunch of different categories. But when she kept track of how much she spent, if you add up this column, she actually only spent $157. So that means there's a difference between her budgeted amount and her actual amount. That means her income, 188, was higher than her expenses, so she had a surplus. A surplus of 188 minus 157, or $31. So what could she do with that money? Hopefully she puts into savings, especially because when I looked at this budget, I actually don't see savings anywhere in that budget. So what she should do is add a category and budget to put 31 bucks into that category. This is just a good tip for yourself. It's always good to underestimate your income and overestimate your expenses. You don't have to go crazy, but if you underestimate your income and overestimate your expenses, that's going to help you, it's going to help lead to more surpluses and fewer deficits, which means putting more money than you even originally planned in towards savings. So just as a quick example of this, Brian, working part-time, earned $21,400 before taxes, which comes out to $18,592 after taxes. What could Brian use for his monthly income in his budget? So first of all, we care about the after-tax amount for creating the budget, because that's the amount that you actually have to spend on the different items, or the different categories. And what we're going to do is we're just going to divide that by 12. That's how much he made in a year. So we take it and divide it by 12, and we get his monthly amount. So that's $1,549.33. So what could he use for his monthly income in his budget? Well, as we said, it's good to underestimate this. So what I would probably do is round it down to something like $1,500. And that means he sort of has $50 a month of that extra little wiggle room, which can help cover things like unexpected costs, or it's that little bit that if you have it left over, you can put that additional amount into your savings account beyond what you're already budgeting to put into your savings account. Here's one last example. So Michael gets paid $840 every 2 weeks for his job with a landscaping company, and he makes a list of his spending last month. We want to know if he has a surplus or a deficit and what he could do with his surplus or deficit. So to start with, I want to know his income. And he gets paid $840 every 2 weeks. So I'm going to take $840, multiply it by 2. That's how much he makes every 4 weeks, which is about every month. It gets complicated because 4 weeks is 28 days, and most months have 30 or 31 days. So, but we're going to go with this because this sort of works along our lines of underestimating an income. So we're going to say his income is 840 times 2. That's $1,680 per month. Now we're going to add up his expenses. And we just have to go through that list, add up everything. And when I go through that whole list and add up everything, I get expenses of $1,720. This means that he has, because his expenses are higher than his income, he has a deficit. I'm going to use big red letters because it's scary. What's he going to do about this deficit? There's a couple of options, right? He could say that he has to dip into his savings, or that he has to take out a loan to cover this gap. But instead, what we should really do is take a look through this list of expenses and figure out, is there any wiggle room in here? First of all, I look down here and I see a pretty big entertainment budget, $280 per month. And this is really one of those want categories, not one of the need categories. It's important to have a little bit of entertainment. It's important to budget for that so that you're having fun and doing the things you like to do in your life. But if you have a deficit of, this is $40 deficit, and you have a $280 entertainment budget, what I'm thinking is take $40 off this entertainment budget and make it now $240, and that will help Michael get his income and expenses closer in line to each other. I also noticed that his savings is pretty low, so I'm thinking that Michael has some planning to do, needs to retool this budget quite a bit. And maybe he needs to think about lowering that entertainment budget even more so that he can increase that savings amount.